Well, goodbye, doggy. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're continuing reading. It's just another 3 episodes reading, and then we'll finally go out and do something else again. And then we'll still be alternating between reading and doing stuff. But we'll at least have some sort of gap in there, because goddamn, even I need that gap right now, because holy shit, this is way too much reading for one man. But, Master Zoraym's Tale is next on the list today. Master Zoraym. Master Zoraym's Tale by Gananth. The Temple of Two Moons dance in Torval has for many hundreds of years been the finest training ground in all Tamriel for warriors of foot and fist. The masters teach students of all ages from the parts of the Empire the most ancient techniques and the most modern variations, and many a former pupil has graduated to great fame. I myself trained there, and as a young child I remembered asking my first master, Zoraym, which former student he felt had best learned the lessons of the temple. I was not a teacher when I met this man, but a student myself, he said, smiling in reminiscence, his great wrinkled face becoming even more like the withered fruit of the bathroom tree. This was long ago, before your parents were born. For many years I had trained at the temple, rising to study in more difficult and demanding classes taught by the wisest and most learned masters of the Two Moons dance. Gananth, you will come to understand that the tempering of your body must attend the tempering of your mind, and there is a prescribed order of training we at the temple have designed over the years in concordance with the way of Riddlethar. I had reached the highest level, where my power and skill were such that even by supernatural magical means, few could ever best me in weaponless combat. What a fucking sentence. There was a servant at the temple at the time, a Dunmer a few years older than myself, and those in my class. We had never noticed him, but in passing over the years, for he would enter the training chambers quietly, clean for a few minutes' time, and leave without saying a word. Not that we would have listened if he spoke, so enraptured were we in our exercises and lessons. When our last master told some of us, myself included, that the time had come for us to leave the temple or become teachers, there was a great festival of celebration. The Main itself deigned to visit and observe our ceremony. As we were and are a temple of philosophy and combat, there were contestants of debate and competition to the temple's warrior arena, not only among the elite few, but open to all students. On the first day of the festival, I was examining the gladiatorial roster to see who I would fight with first, when I heard a conversation behind me, the servant speaking to the archpriest of the temple. It was the first time I heard the Dunmer's voice, and the first time I heard his name. I understand that you wish to rejoin your people's struggle in Morrowind, Taran, the archpriest was saying. I am sorry to hear it. You have been an institution here for many, many years, and you will be missed. If there's anything I can do for you, please name it. Thank you for your kindness, the Dunmer replied. I do have a request, but I fear you would be loath to grant it. Ever since I first came to the temple, I have been watching the students learn and practice myself with the duties allowed for it. I know I am but a servant here, but I would be honored if you would allow me to compete in the war arena. I stifled back my gasp at the Mer's impertinence to even suggest that he would be worthy to fight with those of us who had trained so hard. To my surprise, the archpriest agreed, adding the name Taran O'Mathan to the roster at the beginner's level. I was eager to whisper the news to my fellow elite students, but my first bout was scheduled to begin in a few minutes' time. I fought 18 competitions in a row, besting all. The crowd gathered in the arena gathered in the arena knew of my prowess, and gave polite, unsurprised applause at the end of each fight. As much as I focused on my own battles, I could not help noticing that other competitions were receiving more and more attention in the arena. The spectators whispered among themselves, and more began drifting away to see something that was evidently more spectacular and unusual than my unbroken string of victories. One of the most important lessons we teach from the Two Moons dance is the lesson of rejecting one's vanity. I understood then the importance of achieving a personal synchronicity with one's body and mind, of rebuffing outside influences of no importance, but I admit I had not accepted the lesson in my heart. I knew I was good, but my pride was hurt. It came down to a contest of champions, and I was one of the two. When I saw who the other fighter would be, my mood turned from one of wounded dignity to complete disbelief. My adversary was the servant, Taryn. It must be a joke or some final philosophical test, I reasoned. Then I looked into the crowd and saw anticipation of a great battle to come in every eye. We gave one another the sign of respect, I stiffly and he with the great elegance and modesty. The fight began. Initially, I sought to end it quickly, still thinking that he was unworthy to be cleaning the arena, and let alone fighting in it. In retrospect, I was being illogical, as I must have known he had bested as many students as I to had reached that final level. He offered simple counterblows to my attacks, and responded in kind. His style was expansive, encompassing sophisticated arcane footplay one moment and simple jabs and kicks the next. I tried assailments intended to dazzle, but his face never showed either fear or contempt of my abilities. The fight lasted for a long time. I don't recall when I realized I was destined to lose, but when it ended, I was not surprised with the outcome. With a sense of unusual and true modesty, I bowed to him, but I could not resist asking him, as we left the arena to the sound of thunderous applause, how he had so secretly grown to become a master. I never had a choice to rise in the temple, Taryn replied. Every day, I cleaned the training chambers of the elite classes and then the beginners. So you see, I never had the misfortune to forget those early mistakes, lessons, and techniques while observing and learning the ways of the masters. He left Torval early the next morning to return to his homeland, and I never saw him again, though I've heard people say that he's become a priest and a teacher. I became a teacher as well, for children just beginning their training in the Two Moons, as well as the elite, and I make certain to bring my best pupils to see the how the unlearned fight. So that they might never forget. To see the how the unlearned fight. Wow. Always love when you end a book on a fucking major, just incoherent sentence. That's great. Or maybe I'm just fucking dumb. That could always be it. That is definitely always an option. Alright, More Than Mortal, another 14-pager. The Dowry, Ancient Tales of the Dormer, Part 10. Oh, let me check this out really quick. Yep, this is part of a series that I feel like we might have actually already read some of those books by accident, but I ain't gonna read it just because. You never really know, huh? Alright, well then in that case, Night Falls on Sentinel, 15 pages. Alright, fair enough. Night Falls on Sentinel by Bowley. No music played in the nameless tavern in Sentinel, and indeed there was very little sound except for discreet, cautious murmurs of conversation, the soft pad of the barmaid's feet on stone, and the delicate slurping of the regular patrons, tongues lapping at their flagons, eyes focused on nothing at all. If anyone were less otherwise occupied, the sight of the young Redguard woman in a fine black velvet cape might have aroused surprise, even suspicion. As it were, the strange figure, out of place in an underground cellar, so modest it had no sign, blended into the shadows. Are you Jomic? The stout, middle-aged man with the face older than his years looked up and nodded. He returned to his drink. The young woman took the seat next to him. My name is Habala, she said, and pulled out a small bag of gold, placing it next to his mug. Sure it be, snarled Jomic, and met her eyes again. Who do you want dead? She did not turn away, but merely asked, Is it safe to talk here? No one cares about nobody else's problems but their own here. You could take off your cuirass and dance bare-breasted on the table, and no one even spit. The man smiled. So who do you want dead? No one, actually, said Habila. The truth is, I only want someone removed for a while. Not harmed, you understand, and that's why I need a professional. You come highly recommended. Who you been talking to? Asked Jomick dully, returning to his drink. A friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. One of them friends don't know what he's talking about, grumbled the man. I don't do that anymore. Habila quietly took out another purse of gold and then another, placing them at the man's elbow. He looked at her for a moment and then poured the gold out and began counting. As he did, he asked, Who do you want removed? Just a moment, smiled Habila, shaking her head. Before we talk details, I want to know that you're a professional, and you won't harm this person very much, and that you'll be discreet. You want discreet, the man paused in his counting. All right, I'll tell you about an old job of mine. It's been, by archaic, I can hardly believe it, more than 20 years, and no one but me is alive who had anything to do with the job. This is back before the time of the War of Bethany, remember that? I was just a baby. Of course you was, Jomick smiled. Everyone knows that King Lutton had an older brother, Greclith, what died, right? And then he's got his older sister, Obki, what married that king fella in Daggerfall. But the truth's that he had 2 elder brothers. Really? Havila's eyes glistened with interest. No lie, he chuckled. Weedy, feeble fella called Arthago, the king and the queen's firstborn. Anyhow, this prince was heir to the throne, which his parents wasn't too thrilled about, but then the queen, she squeezed out 2 more princes who looked a lot more fit. That's when me and my boys got hired, to make it look like the first prince got took off by the Underking or some such story. I had no idea, the young woman whispered. Of course you didn't. That's the point. Jomick shook his head. Discretion, like you said. We bagged the boy, dropped him off deep in an old ruin, and that was that. No fuss. Just a couple fellas, a bag, and a club. That's what I'm interested in, said Habila. Technique. My friend who needs to be taken away is weak also, like this prince. What is the club for? It's a tool. So many things what was better in the past ain't around no more. We still have clubs. Just 'cause people today prefer ease of use to what works right. Let me explain. There are 71 prime pain centers in an average fella's body. Okay, you know a little too much, bud. Elves and Khajiit, being so sensitive and all, got 3 and 4 more respectively. Respectively speaking, of course. Argonians and Slowids, almost as many at 52 and 67. Goddamn, 52 more points, huh? Jomick used his short, stubby finger to point out each region on Habila's body. 6 in your forehead, 2 in your brow, 2 on your nose, 7 in your throat, 10 in your chest, 9 in your abdomen, 3 on each arm, 12 in your groin. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. 4 in your favored leg, 5 in the other. Weird. That's 63, replied Habila. No, it's not, growled Jomick. Yes, it is, the young lady cried back, indignant that her mathematical skills were being questioned. 6 plus 2 plus 2 plus 7 plus 10 plus 9 plus 3 for one arm and 3 for the other plus 12 plus 4 plus 5. 63. I must have left some out, shrugged Jomick. The important thing is that to become skilled with the staff or club, you gotta be a master of these pain centers. Done right, a light tap could kill, or knock out without so much as a bruise. Fascinating, smiled Habila, and no one ever found out. Why would they? The boy's parents, the king and queen, they're both dead now. The other children always thought their brother got carried off by the Underking. That's what everyone thinks. That's all them. And all my partners are dead. Of natural causes. Ain't nothing natural that ever happened in the bay, you know that. One fella got sucked up by one of them Selenu. Another died of that same plague that took the queen and Prince Greclith. Another fella got himself beat up to death by a burglar. You gotta keep low, out of sight, like me, if you want to stay alive. Jomick finished counting the coins. You must want this fella out of the way bad. Who is it? It's better if I show you, said Habila, standing up. Without a look back, she strode out of the nameless tavern. Jamek drained his beer and went out. The night was cool, with an unrestrained wind surging off the winter of the Iliac Bay, sending leaves flying like whirling shards. Habila stepped out of the alleyway next to the tavern and gestured to him. As he approached her, the breeze blew open her cape, revealing the armor beneath and the crest of the King of Sentinel. The fat man stepped back to flee, but she was too fast. In a blur, he found himself in the alley on his back, the woman's knee pressed firmly against his throat. The king has spent years since he took the throne looking for you and your collaborators, Jamek. His instructions to me, what to do when I found you, were not specific, but you've given me an idea. From her belt, Habila removed a small, sturdy cudgel. A drunk stumbling out of the bar heard a whimpering moan accompanied by a soft whisper coming from the darkness of the alley. Let's keep better count this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oof, that's tough. Using his own tricks against him. God damn. That's pretty fucking rough, huh? Alright, on to the next book. Purloined Shadows. 18 pages, let's do it. Purloined Shadows by Wayan Jarth. Chapter 1. The candle was lit, and the thief was standing there, blinking, caught. She was young, rather dirty, wearing ragged black clothes that were surely quite smart and expensive weeks ago, when she had stolen them from one of the city's best tailors. The look of surprise slipped from her face, and she took on a blank expression as she put the gold back on the table. "What are you doing here?" the man with the candle asked, stepping from the shadows. "That's a stupid question," the girl replied, frowning. "I'm obviously robbing you." "Since nothing I have is missing," the man smiled, glancing at the gold on the table, "I would have to say that you're not robbing me. Attempting to rob me, perhaps. The question I have is why? You know who I am, I assume. You didn't just come in through an unlocked door. I've stolen from everyone else. I've taken soul gems from the Mages Guild. I've robbed the treasury of the most secure fortress. I cheated the Archbishop of Julianos. I even pickpocketed the Emperor Pelagius at his coronation. I thought it was your turn." "I'm flattered," the man nodded. "Now that your ambition has been thwarted, what will you do? Flee? Perhaps retire?" "Teach me," the girl replied, a little grin finding its way unconsciously on her face. "I picked all your locks. I slipped past all your wards. You designed them, you know how difficult that was for someone without training. I didn't come here for 6 gold pieces. I came here to prove myself. Make me your student." The master of stealth looked at the little girl burglar. "Your skill is not in need of training. Your planning is adequate, but I can help you with that. What is without hope is your ambition. You are past stealing for your livelihood. Now you steal for the pleasure of it, for the challenge. That's a personality trait which is incurable and will lead you to an early grave. Haven't you ever wanted to steal that which can't be stolen?" the girl asked. "Something that would make your name known forever." I mean, that's exactly why I stole the fucking Elder Scroll, huh? Or just because there was a quest in the game. Somebody asked me to do something, I had to do it, you know? The master did not answer, he only frowned. "Clearly I was fooled by your reputation," she shrugged, and opened a window. "I thought you might want a willing accomplice on some great act of thievery, which would go down in history. Like you said, my skill at planning is only adequate. I didn't have in mind an escape route, but this will have to do." The burglar slipped down the sheer wall, dashed across the shadowy courtyard, and within a few minutes was back at her room in the run-down tavern. The master was waiting for her there, in the dark. "I didn't see you go past me," she gasped. "You turned on the street when you heard the owl call," he replied. "The most important tool in the thieves' repertoire is distraction, either planned or improvised. I suppose your lessons have begun." "And what is the final test?" the girl smiled. When he told her, she could only stare. She had, it seemed, not misunderstood his reputation for daring. Not at all. Chapter 2. For the week leading up to the 8th of Hearthfire, the skies above Rindale were dark and alive as clouds of crows blotted out the sun. Their guttural squawks and groans deafened all. The peasants wisely bolted their doors and windows, praying for survival that most unholy of days. On the night of the summoning, the birds fell silent, their black, unblinking eyes following the witch's march into the glen. There were no moons to light the way, only the leader's single torch in the gloom. Their white robes appeared as indistinct shapes, like the faintest of ghosts. A single tall tree stood in the middle of the clearing, every branch thick with crows, watching the procession without moving. The lead witch placed the torch at the base of the tree, and her 17 followers formed a circle and began their slow, strange, wailing chant. As they sang, the glow of the torch began to change. It did not diminish at all, but its color became more and more gray, so it seemed a pulsating wave of ash had fallen on the witches. Then it grew darker still, so that for a moment the fire yet burned. It was darkest night in the forest. The penumbra continued until the torch was burning, with a color without a name, emptiness beyond mere blackness. It cast a glow, but it was an unnatural scintillation falling on the witches. Their robes of white became black. The Dunmer among them had eyes of green and ivory white flesh. The Nords appeared black as coal. The crows watching overhead were as pure white as the witches' cloaks. The Daedra princess Nocturnal stepped out of the pit of uncolor. She stood in the center of the circle, the tree of pallid crows her throne, aloof as the witches continued their chanting, dropping their robes to prostrate themselves naked before their great mistress. Wrapping her night cloak around her, she smiled at their song. It spoke of her mystery, of veiled beauty, of eternal shadows and a divine future, when the sun burns no more. Nocturnal let her cloak slide from her shoulders and was naked. Her witches did not raise their head from the ground, but continued their hymn of darkness. "Now," said the girl to herself. She had been up in the tree all day, dressed in a ridiculous suit of mock crows. It was uncomfortable, but when the witches had arrived, she forgot all her aches and concentrated on being perfectly still, like the other crows in the tree. It had taken considerable planning and study between her and the Master of Stealth to find the glen, and to learn what to expect in the summoning of Nocturnal. Gently, silently, the burglar eased herself down the branches of the tree, coming closer and closer to the Daedra princess. She let herself break her concentration for just a moment, and wondered where the master was. He had been confident in the plan. He said that when Nocturnal dropped her cloak, there would be a distraction, and it could be quickly taken in that instant, provided the girl was in position at the precise right moment. The girl climbed along the lowest of the branches, carefully pushing aside the crows that were, as the master said, transfixed by the princess in her naked beauty. The girl was now close enough, if she only reached out her arm to touch Nocturnal's back. The song was rising to a crescendo, and the girl knew that the ceremony would soon be over. Nocturnal would clothe herself before the witches ended the chant, and the chance to take the cloak would be over. The girl gripped the tree branch tightly as her mind raced. Could it be that the master was not here at all? Was this conceivably the entire test? Was it only to show that it could be done, not to do it? The girl was furious. She had done everything perfectly, but the so-called Master of Stealth had proven himself a coward. Perhaps he had taught her a little in the months that it took to plan this, but what was it worth? Only one thing made her smile. On that night, when she had stolen into his stronghold, she had kept one single gold piece, and he had never suspected it. It was symbolic as stealing the cloak of Nocturnal in its way, proving that the master thief could be robbed. The girl was so lost in her mind that she thought she imagined it for a moment when a man's voice yelled out from the darkness, "Mistress!" The next words she knew she didn't imagine. "Mistress, a thief! Behind you!" The witches raised their heads and screamed, ruining the sanctity of the ceremony. As they charged forward, the crows awoke and burst from the trees in an explosion of feathers and toad-like cries. Nocturnal herself whirled around, affixing the girl with her black eyes. "Who art thee who dares profane?" the princess hissed, as the pitch shadows flew from the body, enveloping the girl in their lethal chill. In the last instant before she was swallowed alive by darkness, the girl looked to the ground and saw that the cloak was gone, and she answered, as she understood, "Oh, who am I? I'm the distraction." Damn. Well, that's kind of tough. That's pretty fucking rough, huh? Rip R.I.P. Well, that's another... What was that? Was that 3 books? What did we read? Nightfall Sentinel, Purloined Shadow, and then we also read... Master Zoaraym. Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for today. Thank you yet again for watching. We're going to move over to our second to last chair. I think we'll sit over here. And then we'll close everything out on the snuggle bench. God damn. Every time you sit down on a fucking table in this game, this really is the best seat in the house, huh? This and the other chair on the other side out there. Definitely the best seats in the house. But anyway, that's going to do it for today. Except I can't even reach the ballywag tail that's there. Maybe I can, if I look to the side. Nope, can't even reach the ballywag tail. But yeah, that's going to do it for today. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope you join us in the next video, where we shall be, once again, reading. Till then, goodbye.
Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you. Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you.